Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu to you ladies of Spain. Let's have a chat about Jaws, shall we? I love that film. It's a classic film and it's a classic theme. But just because it's a classic theme doesn't mean that a pinball company can't screw it up. I offer you Star Wars as a prime example. That's been screwed up by numerous pinball companies. However, today, my mate Paul, Silver Paolo from the forum, he phoned me up and he said, have you heard the news? Have you heard the rumours about Jaws? Well, I hadn't heard the rumours about Jaws that he told me. Now, he picked it up off of Canada's podcast. So this is a guy, this is a podcaster that's in the know. He knows all the secrets, basically, and he runs a Patreon podcast which you can subscribe to, and you can get those secrets early. But fortunately for me, Paul told me, so I'm hearing it secondhand. However, somebody on the forum has produced this rather nice graphic of it, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about the game. But I want to discuss what's going to be in the game, but more importantly, why Jaws is such a mega important title for Stern, because I feel things have changed for Stern quite considerably. And I'm going off of the back of Venom here. And I know, look, Venom's getting a bit of a bum rap, and at least I've had a chance to get my hands on it. And I found it just was very, very stripped down. So I found it quite underwhelming for a lot of reasons. However, it's not that every game that Stern have produced recently has been bad. I played James Bond today, funnily enough, and I thought it was pretty good. I've got to say, I think the code's really improved. I like the shots. It's a George Gomez game, but I really noticed it. I think I first played it, well, way back, probably in the spring, and having played it now, it does seem like a vastly different game. It feels like James Bond. I want to play more. I want to learn more. I want to explore more of the game. Obviously, I've been lucky enough to have Foo Fighters here as well, and I think that's a good game, a really good game. I really enjoyed that. And funny enough, when I do my top 50, I often ask, do I miss it? I think I have missed Foo Fighters a little bit. It has to be said. However, Venom, Stern are not going to get away with doing that again. Now, Stern would have got away with that in years gone by because it was almost a case of they had such a big market share, and anybody else that was producing pinball machines was either JJP, which were so expensive, and for me, they had that flipper issue, and they didn't produce enough games regularly. And anybody else aside from that was really, it felt like a boutique manufacturer. Now, I'm not entirely sure what a boutique pinball manufacturer is, but, well, I think that might be one of them there. American Pinball. Quite possibly it's Dutch Pinball, maybe it's Spooky. However, at what point do you cross the line and stop being boutique and just start being a manufacturer of pinball machines? Because now I think Stern has serious competition. So there would have been a time, and not that long ago, 3 or 4 years ago, where if you had a few $1,000s, a few £1,000 to spend on a pinball machine, you'd have spent it with Stern. Now I'm not quite so sure. But certainly for me, I wouldn't do that. My last purchase was Big Lebowski, for all the reasons. I'm not going to talk about Big Lebowski again. I will do when I get the new toilet modification. I'll talk about that a little bit more then. And my new Collie Wobbles plastic protectors. I'll talk about it a little bit more then. However, my last purchase was not a Stern. And in fact, my most recent one was not a Stern. I went and got a Theatre of Magic. I'm not desperate for the latest Stern anymore. And Stern need to create a situation where they start producing the best pinball machines that they can. And that's all. That's it. Do Stern make the best pinball machines they can? With Venom? No, they didn't. They made the bare minimum. The bare minimum it would possibly take to call it a pinball machine. In fact, I think that in many respects, I looked at how stripped it was. It was closer to a Fisher-Price kiddies kindergarten nursery pinball replica than it was a Big Lebowski, for instance. However, they got a chance to get it back here with Jaws, and we know that they can do it. We know Keith Elwins can do it because Godzilla was a triumph. Godzilla was one of the best pinball machines that's ever been made. A few days ago, I did uploaded the video when I was talking about theme and about how theme can immerse you in the rule set and enable you to learn the rules. It's a bit of genius, really, Godzilla, because it's a deep game, but also there's a little shallow rule set there as well. So if you just want to do some of the smaller things, just want to sort of battle the monsters, or just want to sort of knock down a building and get multi-ball, or maybe just want to concentrate on the Mecha Godzilla, or just do the UFO stuff, there's enough small games within it to keep the novice player interested, but enough depth of code to be able to keep the expert player hooked. So that's really good. So I know that Elwin can do that. I also know that he can make the shots, the wonderfully innovative shots, which, again, Jack Danger did those wonderful shots, of course, on Foo Fighters as well. And I thought, again, there's a fan layout, and then there's just a simple fan layout with no creativity in it at all. And certainly that's the way I looked at Venom, and it was very much that. I'm pretty sure when Jaws comes out, you're going to see some innovation, you're going to see something interesting. But it's not just that. So a lot of this comes down to theme. Now, I really enjoyed Jurassic Park, Stern's Jurassic Park, Keith Elwins. I enjoyed it so much, I owned it twice. I actually bought it twice. Really good, but it was lacking. Certainly lacking, I think, some of the assets from the movies. Now, I think sometimes you can get away with that. So, for instance, the Venom that we had here wasn't the Venom from the movies. It was Venom from the comic books. It was the same with Avengers Infinity Quest. You can understand why they would do it, and particularly with so many of those. Let's say they'd made Avengers Infinity Quest just Thor. It was just Thor. It's probably easier just to go and get Chris Hemsworth to do the voiceovers than to try and get all of the actors, Scarlett Johansson and everybody, and Robert Downey Jr. That's impossible. You're never going to make that pinball machine. So whilst I think there's a certain element that they would like to make the comic version, I discount it. I don't. That's the affordable way of doing it. There's no way even if they'd have wanted to do the movie version of Avengers, whatever the last two films are called, the one with Thanos and all of that stuff, even if they'd have wanted to, they wouldn't have been able to afford to. So yes, they say they wanted to do a comic version. Well, you had to, really. With Jurassic Park, maybe, just maybe, more could have been done. They couldn't get the movie assets for the screen, and I think that was one of the problems with it. I actually quite liked the animations on it, where they actually properly animated the T-Rex. It was animation. I was heavily critical of Avengers Infinity Quest, and of course on almost forgot it then, on Venom as well. They were just 2D graphics sliding over one another. The proper animations are in Jurassic Park, so they took some time. They really did. They put a lot of love into that, I felt. On the Godzilla, they had actual footage from the original programs, the original Japanese programs. They had the actual footage on there. I think that's good. What I do think is important with Jaws is that they have movie footage in it. So, as I understand it, I'm just going to be reading from it. As I understand it, they have permission to use Richard Dreyfuss's likeness on the artwork and Robert Shaw's likeness on the artwork, but not Rob Schneider. Now, I think you can get away with that, and I think that's fine as long as you have the movie clips. You're going to need... You sort of can't have Jaws without someone's... Well, without some of the key scenes. Particularly, we're going to need a bigger boat, which is Snyder, of course. But you're going to get away without having him on the playfield if the movie assets are there. So if they've got that, they've got the movie assets, they've got the movie clips, I can live without him being on the back glass. I think that's absolutely fine. Let me tell you what's in the game, because it does sound exciting. So the upper playfield is going to be the Orca, but not a killer whale, the boat. Now, it's going to be on the upper playfield. Now, apparently, the ship... Allegedly, I think this information has come from Canada, and I apologise if it hasn't, but I think I'm pretty safe ground with this. It goes up and down or sinks, so that could be really, really interesting. There's a chum bucket. Now, obviously, for those of you who don't know, a chum is basically mashed up fish, is what you throw into the water. You remember it from the film, but it's what you throw in the water to attract the predators, attract the sharks. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I'm finding it quite hard to picture the chum bucket. It's not a massive part of the film. I understand when they got their back to the boat and the shark comes up. I understand that bit is, but I think there's other more interesting parts to the film. here's the really interesting bit, I think, is Jaws, the shark, comes up out of the playfield. Now that's innovation. That's really good. That's the sort of stuff that Stern need to be doing. Because not only does that make the game a must-have, it would make the premium a must-have. And by the way, as I understand it, there'll be a Pro, a Premium, and a Limited Edition. I say it would make the Pro, it would make the Premium a must-have. If, for instance, the Premium was just missing the upper playfield, but it still had Jaws coming out of the playfield, that would be pretty cool too, okay? But I'm assuming you're going to want the boat. It's a big, big part of the movie, and I'm assuming you're going to want the shark. I think they're two pretty good things. They're two pretty big, important aspects to the film, which are going to be important aspects to the game. Then there's a disc, like the Avengers Infinity Quest disc. If you under Benedict Cumberbatch, you spin when you hit that and it spins around. Now apparently it's going to be, it sits above the upper right hand corner of the game. I don't know, why does it sit above it? I don't know. Listen, I'm not criticising. I'm very, very open to this game being an excellent game. If it is, I'll get one. I really will. Then you've got the barrels. Now, do you remember the barrels? So you had the harpoon. You had the harpoon gun on the front of the boat. And had those yellow barrels, and they were attached to a rope. And the idea was you would shoot the shark with the harpoon, and it would attach the barrels. The idea of the barrels was that they would give the shark buoyancy. So the shark would dive, but it would bring it back up to the surface. Make the shark easier to hunt. That, far more than the chum bucket, was an important part of the film for me. Now, it says on here, Stern have scrapped 3 barrels for 1, with the upper left flipper to collect them all. I mean, so this is interesting. Are you just going to be collecting virtual barrels, or is there a barrel on the playfield? I really do think it's important that barrels, or a barrel, features in this game. Remember, it was one of my criticisms of Toy Story. I think if you're going to make Toy Story, there's an obvious mechanism, and it's the claw. You've got to have the claw in there. It was a dereliction of duty, quite frankly, not having a claw in Toy Story. I don't think you cannot miss the barrels out of this. So I don't just want to collect them virtually. I want there to be a barrel on the screen. I think that's important. Now this is really interesting. Translucent area. To the right of Quint, there's a translucent blue area of the playfield, basically like so on James Bond to the left of it, just to underneath the left flipper, there's like a little diver. It's like that fight scene with James Bond wrestling the diver. I don't know. Maybe it might be a hologram thing with the shark under there, like in Creature from the Black Lagoon. I really don't know. Some of the other things here are the Ellie armour is white, apparently. It doesn't really matter. But there's a bite mark coming out the rails. That sounds pretty neat. But a powder coating, let's be fair, we can all get it done for pretty cheap anyway. The Ellie art features Jaws swimming underneath a bunch of legs. Look, it's that iconic poster. That's what we want. You know, the iconic poster where the lady's on top on the surface of the water and the shark's underneath. I mean, it's got to feature. You've got to have that. It's a 4-flipper game. Sorry, I'm looking beyond the camera here because it's written 2 ramps, lots of wire forms, 4 flippers. This sounds cool. I mean, this game sounds really, really cool. When you can't waste a license like this, and that's really my point here. And I do think I really liked Jurassic Park as a game, but the license was wasted by not having the movie footage in there. You don't have to get everyone's permission to use them on the playfield. I've said this exactly the same with Back to the Future. I think you can, as long as you've got the music, both for Jaws and Back to the Future, and as long as you've got some movie clips, I think you're cool. Even if 1 or 2 of them that are not featuring on the back glass or something like that, I think that's absolutely fine as well. Ideally, somebody to do the call-outs, but I don't care. I mean, look, if they can get Richard Dreyfuss to do the call-outs on Jaws, then great. But ultimately, I don't care. I didn't care on Deadpool that it wasn't Ryan Reynolds doing the call-outs. I discussed it when we did the chinwag with the fine folk from Twippy. Don't mind at all. You know, and the guy who did the voiceover on Deadpool did a fine job. I mean, and let's be fair, good voiceover artists can do a good job. You can get a really, really good impressionist to do good impressions of these guys. I don't think it's a problem at all. So I think there's a lot to look forward to. If they get the mechanisms, they've got the theme, they get the theme tune, they got the movie assets on the screen, they got the shark, they got the boat, they got the barrels. I think they're winning, and they need to. And I think if Stern get this right, they can push themselves back up right to the very top of pinball. Because I do think that they've slipped down a bit. There's no doubt about it. I did the video on this channel about, you know, the substandard parts that sometimes they use, the end stops, the balls. I think when it's small parts like that, I think you don't mind. If it's just a new pack of balls, you know what? Hey, you just buy some new ones. If it's some end stops, it's not many. It's a $5, it's a $10, it's a few pounds, it's a few dollars to get it replaced. I think that's fine. I think, you know, there's been some talk sort of recently about some stuff happening in some of the Foo Fighters playfields, for instance. You know, they want to get that stuff sorted out, and I think if they now produce a game that you can't miss, so the best designer, Keith Elwins, on a really top theme. We did a video talking about dream themes. Jaws is a dream theme. It really is, but you've got to get it right. And I really, because they've got competition now, and that's the difference. 3 years ago, they didn't have. So look, even if you don't believe the rumours of Back to the Future, forget Back to the Future for a second. You still got to compete with Pulp Fiction because they got all the assets for that. Tarantino helped with Raw Thrills and CGC. Tarantino helped develop it. It's got everybody. It's not like they can't put John Travolta on there. They got Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta. That they're all in there. Bruce Willis is on the playfield. Everyone's on there. So it's not like they've not been able to get those assets. So it has competition. If Back to the Future comes out, it has competition. American Pinball. Look, I've not done a video on that since I've had it here. That thing is built like a tank. They're going to do something next. They're going to have some things in the pipeline, which are going to be really, really good. I'm talking. Barrels of Fun have brought out Labyrinth, which I've been speaking about this. I don't remember watching Labyrinth. I remember the Dark Crystal. I remember Fraggle Rock. I like Jim Henson. I love the Muppets. But I don't remember watching it. And I love David Bowie as well. Maybe something I'm going to have to sit down and watch with my daughter, Labyrinth. But that's going to appeal to a lot of people. That's another option. And there are a lot of options out there. And then if the rumours are correct, that JJP are going to be producing, I've heard it, Harry Potter and the Matrix. Don't know how true that is, how accurate that is. That would be brilliant. They seem to have sorted out their flippers now. That was there's two things that put me off of JJP. Number one, they're too bloody expensive. And number two, the flippers. Well, I think Steve Ritchie's gone in and sorted those flippers out. Every person I've said that's played that game, and hopefully we're going to get to test it very soon on this channel, has said that, that game, but by that game I mean Elton John. Very, very good. The flippers are all sorted out. The shots are good. So that's option. So put it this way. What I'm saying is, if you've got these pinball machines out there, and you have Pulp Fiction, and you have Back to the Future, and then you have Harry Potter or whatever, or Matrix, the case maybe, it is very, very hard for Stern to get that full market share, which they would have had 3 years ago. They just would have had it. Now there are other options. And I just don't think you can get away with producing a stripped-down pinball machine with a very basic fan layout, with pretty poor mechanisms and stuff like that. And you're just not going to get away with it. They need the game. They'll get it. That's Keith Elwins. That bit's guaranteed. They'll get the game. He'll code it well. They'll get all the flippers will work. It will shoot wonderfully. I've no doubt about that. This game will shoot wonderfully. They've got the theme in terms of Jaws. But do they have the assets to go with it? If they can tie all three of those things together, I think Stern have got a winner.